And we're back. Borrowing that tagline from Trying Things with Tom, I'm giving a selfless plug to Brad's brother, who does this fantastic web series
Yes.
on trying different foods. We're going to be guest stars one day, and it'll be amazing. But anyway, in the meantime, we're back. So this is Hearing Things with Julie and Brad. Here's Brad, my co-conspirator and cooperative partner in this and friend, and here we are. So as you may remember from previous episodes, or if you're new, just a reminder, we are both hearing impaired or hearing disabled or hard of hearing. We
Yeah.
don't really know. We're going to talk
Right.
about that in a minute, but we have similar hearing losses, and we always want to get together and teach and talk and share perspectives and opinions and of how the world works for us in a world that's not designed with our needs in mind. And again, reminding everyone it's our personal experiences, it's not a generalized or global perspective for that everyone with a hearing impairment or someone that is deaf
Right.
or whatever vocabulary we're going to use today
Yeah.
experiences. So, Brad, along those lines,
Yeah.
I've kind of given a little bit of a tidbit preview. I'm going to knock it over to you because you just went to a fantastic conference
Yeah.
and spent a lot of time with this particular topic that we're covering today. So I'm going to pass it right over to you.
Yeah. So I went to the HLAA, which is a really tough acronym. It's the Hearing Loss Association of America, the national conference. And I had just recently gotten involved in the Boston chapter because I wanted to give back. And this has nothing to do with that work, but it dovetails nicely.
Hmm.
But anyway, so we were out in Phoenix where it was 110 in June, and I did not go outside because that's too damn hot.
That's a lot.
But one thing that was saying inside the cool air-conditioned confines of the conference center was self-identify, and that was so important. And it's what Julie and I want to talk about today: is
Hmm.
how do you introduce? When do you introduce your hearing loss? And
Hmm.
more to the point, what do you call yourself? And so I'll start my thoughts here is that I've had to at work do it quickly because in a library you usually
Hmm.
don't want to speak up, but I want you to speak up because I can't hear you.
I
Um,
hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
and so during the pandemic, when it was all phones and masks, it was just horrible. And as a matter of self preservation, I have a button now I labeled
Hmm.
myself that says, please be patient, I'm hard of hearing. So that people won't get mad at me or won't think I'm playing
Hmm.
a trick on them to get them to speak louder in a library and therefore get kicked out.
Right.
The trick there is you got to get people to read the button,
Yeah.
and they don't always do that. But I've been very open about my hearing loss in the last 5 years because I've had to.
Hmm.
But once I made myself vulnerable, it's become a habit. But it's still not easy. Recording like this is still anxiety provoking. It's
Absolutely.
nervous because you don't know what the reaction is going to be.
Hmm.
Is going to be a hit to my self esteem, my self worth. But it's better. I can't fool people, right? I
Right.
mean, I try, and bluffing is another term that got thrown around at
Hmm.
the conference a lot. Is that we all bluff every
Yep.
day, multiple times a day, because the energy it takes to get people to rephrase, not repeat.
Yep.
If you watched the last episode,
Yep.
it takes a lot, and is it worth the effort every time? And honestly, the answer is no. And so I've started to self-identify with the button, and I actually even got little covers to my hearing aids.
Those are cool.
Yeah, so it's one of the conference speakers makes these, and so
Nice.
I bought them, and but you can see that you can't really see it unless I like turn my head. You can
Hmm.
kind of see it there, and I'm 6'2", and so I'm usually taller than people at the library, so
Right.
it's difficult. So with that and the button, and just being really open about it, but I still don't know what to call myself. I still go back and forth, and I think that some days I want to call myself deaf because the prevailing theme in society is all or nothing, right? So if I
Right.
say I'm deaf and yet get startled by something dropping on the floor, I just lied to someone, right? I'm
Right.
not deaf. Making myself hearing impaired. That's like a medical diagnosis, which it is, but it's
Right.
also less than, right?
Hmm.
Hard of hearing, I think, is the one that I'm leaning towards now. but that's going to change, I think, over time, because it's hard because each one of those phrases or words have a different connotation. So I have rambled on for a while. What do you think,
No,
Julie?
I was just going to jump in and say you're right. The words have power
Yeah.
behind them. And for myself, I've had to advocate for myself from minute one. Like I remember
Yeah.
even being in first grade,
Yeah.
coming home upset that I couldn't hear the teacher, and my parents are still amazing. Really taught me how to advocate from a young age of like, no, you need to go in and you need to tell the teacher you can't hear and you need to move your seat. So for me, it's been a
Yeah.
lifelong advocacy trail that's evolved with me as I've gotten older. Sure. In terms of how I state my hearing loss, I've always gone with hearing impaired. I think that's just the language that was around
Mm-hmm.
in 1977, 78. That was kind of the term they used for someone like me because I do speak and I do
Right.
use hearing aids. The deaf community is amazing, and that's the uppercase D for deaf.
Right.
That's something completely separate from the life experiences that I have and
Mm-hmm.
kind of the way I approach hearing and navigation of the world. So I don't really feel comfortable using deaf in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I use deaf with the small d,
Right.
but like you said, doesn't really fit for the public perception that people, hear the word deaf and think it's completely silent. Where I'm telling you I'm deaf, and then the next thing you know, I get bopping around to Frank Sinatra, and I'm like, okay, hold on, something's not matching. So I've always gone with hearing impaired because for me, the impairment is something that is in the way of something working. So hearing impaired for me feels good. Hard of hearing just sounds clunky and old-fashioned, personal, but there's also very a personal statement to make about yourself, and you have to use the words you feel comfortable with. So right now it's hard of hearing. Sometimes deaf works to swing in there because, you know, here's the benefit of hearing aids. Here's what my hearing loss is.
Yeah.
We're getting closer and closer to
Yeah.
bottoming out on these being able to be effective tools. So deaf may
Yeah.
have to be introduced.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I bounce all over the place with it, but I find my default is hearing impaired. And in terms of disclosure, I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So each year, the first day or two of school, I have a special lesson plan that I do with all my students. I teach small groups, special education teacher, and I have a slideshow that goes with it. And I take a hearing aid out, and we pass it around, and I pray that nobody drops it or like does anything to it. And I encourage the kids all year, like, ask the curious questions you have. Make sure you're looking at Mrs. Lane. Please repeat that. I love when they try and whisper. Not going to work, guys. Other way. Um, but yeah, the vulnerability of disclosure on top of kind of coming up with that identifying statement, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's a tough one for me too. Even though I'm revealing it to children, who are generally a little safer group, although they're probably more blunt than the grown-ups. They're just going to come out and say it, and that's what they want to say. It's still challenging because I don't know, Brad, I don't know if you feel this way, but when I have to meet someone new, or I'm in a work meeting with, let's say, administrators I may not have met before, or I'm taking a class at a university or even on Zoom, and I have to disclose my hearing loss to someone, it doesn't always feel great because I really wonder what is now their assumption about me that may not have been the case when I was just Julie on the screen or Julie in front of you. Now I'm introducing this part of myself. My hearing aids, I'll pop one out for everybody. Won't be able to hear for a second.
I love the pink. Uh, I think Julie. Your mic is off. Or is that me? Can you hear yourself? Or you can't hear yourself? Try. Now you try to unmute yourself again. I see you're muted.
No, I'm
There we
unmuted. Can
go.
you hear me
Yeah.
yet?
Okay, you're back on.
So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, it's a funny thing. I can't hear you right now.
No kidding.
This is what I get for
Okay,
making
hold on.
fun of you with
Hold on.
technology in the last
All right, how's now? You hear me now?
Okay, we're back on.
Okay, yes.
So we just learned something that's actually relevant to what we're talking about. So my hearing aids are Bluetooth compatible and
Yep.
they're hooked up to the computer. So we learn now that when we take one out, it shuts down the
Interesting.
So my
Technology,
little
man.
show and tell just caused a catastrophe. Let me go back. And I was going to say, I try to keep my hearing aids brightly colored so when my hair is up, they're a little more obvious. But most of the time, my hair's down. So that's where it gets tricky and,
Yeah.
come back to this being a more serious thing. that feeling of when I state, oh, I'm going to need this accommodation, or please look at me, or please repeat that. I'm hearing impaired. What is the other person thinking? Are they making an assumption about my intelligence? Are they making an assumption about my skill set or my ability to participate? Has their respect for my knowledge base or, whatever it happens to be gone down just because of societal programming and incorrect perceptions about what it means for someone to have a disability? I don't know. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, I think the answer is yes. I think it's
Yeah.
something else that we heard at the conference on many different sessions is
Hmm.
your hearing loss. If you don't hear something the first time, whatever, stuff happens. If you don't hear
Sure.
it the second time, you're playing a trick on them. If you don't
Hmm.
hear it the third time, you're an idiot. And that's just
Yeah,
kind of what happens. And it's
absolutely.
it's sad. Hearing, like, well, think about, if you want to go back to words, right? What does dumb mean? Originally it meant
Right.
non-speaking. And
Yep.
so there's, right there is the slur in the word. I always
Hmm.
find words fascinating. I love
Right.
etymology, and it's amazing the horror, the discrimination you can find in words, and it's still there, right? So
That's
like
so
dumb
true.
means not speaking, and that
Yep.
also meant or deaf and dumb, right? Is
Yep.
that there was they go hand in hand, and
Yep.
and it's we're a more enlightened society, but we still have a long way to go.
I
It
agree with that for sure.
it's sad. It's really
For
because
sure.
I get it. You must get it with kids too. Is like I get that look, and if you're hard of hearing,
Yeah.
deaf, and hearing impaired,
Yep.
you know what that look means. That look
Yep.
means, oh, the person I'm talking to is stupid. The person
Yes.
looking at you.
Yeah.
You
Right.
just there's that unique look that just comes.
There's, and you and I've talked about this before. There's like a glitch, right? I
Yep.
think we mentioned that before with the lip reading in our previous clip. That there's a very, because we're so good at watching nonverbal signals, because we're always looking at your face, so we're learning a lot of this. That there's like a little hint of recognition or a glitch or something changes in the energy and the
Yeah.
interaction where it's like, ooh, what does that mean? And your preconceived notions kind of kick up, and that's tough to be on the receiving end of, for sure.
And that's why I got involved in the HLA and why I'm so
Hmm.
appreciative of you, Julie, to do this
Sure.
because it's making we're both really vulnerable right now, and I think
Yeah.
that the only way to stop that glitch from happening is to
Yeah.
talk about it. It's to
To
just
educate.
make it more visible, and so I'm hoping that we get a good viewership because I want to help. I want to help myself, honestly, and I want to help other people. I want to help
Absolutely.
other people who are deaf or hard of hearing or whatever they want to
The
call
hearing impaired, or
it.
whatever
Right?
word you
Exactly.
want to kind of toss out there. Sure. What's funny as we're talking and I'm thinking about this, we have that situation where we kind of see the change, right? And you're wondering what the assumptions are around our intelligence or abilities or, life functioning. There's the other swing to that when the pendulum goes the other way, when you come into that danger of revealing your hearing loss, where suddenly you're now the special friend that's going to teach everyone a lesson about the world around them, right? Now
Yeah.
you're the display piece at the zoo. You're the interactive display piece. Wow, we get to interact with a real live
Deaf
deaf
person.
person, hearing, but whatever. And they're going to ask you all the questions. And then they're going to try and come up my favorite thing. Oh, I know sign language. And then they awkwardly try and sign their name at you. There's the other end of that,
Yeah.
right? So you have to decide. I mean, sometimes I have to decide, is it worth it?
Sure.
Is it worth disclosing this? Like it just gets really hard sometimes and it's exhausting. So I don't know if you bumped into the same. I mean, it's a little bit of a comical example, but I have been on the receiving ends of those both situations of the kind of you know, looking down, I guess, for lack of a better term, and then the overly excited. Ooh,
Yeah. I
look at
haven't.
look at this unicorn that popped up.
I haven't been the monkey in the zoo. I haven't been that
Yeah,
one, but yeah, it's it's hard. It's hard
really
sometimes.
hard.
I wish there was an answer, right? I wish
Yeah.
that you could just say, okay, this is what I'm going to say. It doesn't matter what the other person is thinking or
Hmm.
feeling, who the other person is. And that's not the case. We have to, every situation is its island, right? It's
Sure.
every situation we have to go through all of the energy and the work to figure out, well,
Hmm.
am I going to make myself vulnerable to this person? Are
Hmm.
they going to be receptive? How receptive? Which way? And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes you just like
Right.
the person isn't going to be in your life long enough. It's just passing on the streets, and you don't,
Right.
and you just don't have the energy all the time to do it.
It's true. And sometimes you're having all of those feelings, but there's still the necessity of the disclosure because you're about to be in a
Yeah,
work meeting or,
yeah,
there's going to be a doctor's office, for example,
yeah,
some important information that you're going to make sure that you can access. It's hard. So I think that's a big message for today is just, take a minute to pause and
yeah.
think about the things that come natural to you when you enter a situation of human interaction or something like that, and just take a pause and say, whoa, appreciate what we have to kind of be thinking about every minute as we navigate the world, like I always say, that wasn't designed with our needs in mind, for
Mm,
sure.
for sure.
So,
Yeah.
so I want to shift to our happier thing that you and I are committed to, where we always want to put the person first above the
Yes.
disability. And we mentioned before, we're both like crazy readers,
Yes.
and we want to give a book recommendation. So I'm going to have Brad go first this
Okay.
time because I went first last time, and I'm not prepared with any hard copies, but that's okay. We'll put a link in the messaging when we're done. Brad, go.
So
What do you
yeah,
got?
I'm a librarian, so of course I have a personal library, right? So no shade on you. And let's see if I get my camera right this time. So yeah, so this one is Becoming Hearing
Mm,
Empowered by Katherine Rybak. And so she was the author that I saw, and I bought this book and the hearing aid covers from her.
really?
Yeah, I wish my view. There we go. There we go.
There you go.
And so it's like a journal almost. And so
Hmm.
we did. I can't see because it's blurred, but I have the window behind me, so the light would be too much if I didn't blur. But she was amazing. We did just like kind of an exercise, like what do we want to call ourselves? That was
Hmm.
one of the
Oh,
exercises
really?
we did. Is like
Oh,
what do you call
cool.
yourself, and how would you introduce yourself to a stranger versus a family member who you haven't seen in a while? I hated it in the beginning because it was all, I
Sure.
thought it was going to be group work, and I
Hmm.
hate group work.
Not a fan. We know that's not your
Yeah,
favorite thing.
yeah, but that's probably for a different show. So,
Yeah.
Becoming Hearing Empowered by Katherine Rybak. It's fantastic. I've only read a little bit of it, but the work we did in the conference, I have no problem recommending it because it's more deafness related. Just
Yeah.
happened to be what I wanted to recommend to people today. Not all of them, as you saw last
Hmm.
time, are going to be that way
Yeah.
because we're not just our hearing situation.
Absolutely.
So, what do you have?
Hmm. Well, I'm sitting in Maine right now on my porch, and I read this book a couple of years ago. I'm I have to go back and read it again. It blew my mind. It's nonfiction. It's called The Stranger in the Woods. The
Oh,
Extraordinaries, right? You know this one. The
oh, you have
Extraordinary
to read
Story of the
this.
Last True Hermit by Michael Finkel. It is wild. It's
Amazing.
nonfiction. It's fascinating. You want to talk about someone navigating the world in a different way? This fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Here's my thing though. How do we know he's the last true hermit?
Oh no,
Because
we don't.
hermits are really good at hiding.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do we know he's the last one? The only issue with the title, but the book itself blew me away.
Amazing.
It's a must read, and it's special to me because of Maine, of course, but just the human experience and decisions and what creates, someone to want to go out and do this and survive. It's awesome. Do you have anything you want to add? 'Cause I know you read it. I know you loved it
I
too.
read it. It was fantastic. I think that it's it. So we were talking about societal expectations all
Hmm.
episode, and that's kind of the jam for this thing.
Yeah.
But that book really is like, what do you owe society? Why can someone not say, yeah, I'm good, thanks, and just
Yeah, I'm good.
check
Check it out.
out? Like, why
Yeah.
do you need to be in society? It's a fascinating
Right.
question. I love those profound questions where there's no answer. There is no answer because
There
it's
is no
so
answer. And for
personal.
true people who aren't designed to function in society in a typical way, I think grappled a lot with what we think about too. in a connected way to that. It would be a lot easier for us to kind of check out,
Yes, it would. And
live
that's
a very quiet life in the woods ourselves, and not talk to anybody or hear anything ever again. So
that's the
that's right. That's
danger.
the theme of this episode for sure.
Right, so that's the checking out for hearing impaired people. Is I know
Hmm.
so many hearing impaired people that are isolated because it's hard. The fight is hard, and there've been multiple studies on dementia. And another thing I learned at the conference
Yes, we talked about this.
is so there was a study, I think 2020, that said that hearing loss is directly connected to dementia. And yes, that's true, with the enormous caveat
Hmm.
undiagnosed hearing loss. And
Yeah,
so when someone has hearing loss because of the stigma or lack of awareness, it's so easy to retreat into your own world and
big
just
time.
stop interacting. And once you do
Hmm.
that, dementia can set in. And so again, comes back to why we're here, why we're
Yep.
talking about it is we want to make sure that it's not undiagnosed. So if that's you, if you think you have a hearing problem, make an appointment with your PCP,
Yep.
and they'll send you to some audiologist. And I won't lie, sitting in that isolation booth, oh, it sucks. But you got to
Lou,
know what you're dealing with. So please go and get your hearing health.
get your things and feel free to message us, drop a comment. We're happy to talk you
Please do.
through
Yeah,
what that experience is like, how it works, make some recommendations. I've got a great audiologist myself. I know you do as
I do.
well.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. Use us as a resource
Yes.
also. And we'll definitely cover hearing tests in an upcoming episode. That's staying
Yeah. Do
on
we
that.
have
So
to?
we're gonna embrace the trauma.
Yeah.
We're gonna work it out together, Brad. This is a
All
lot.
right. All right. As long as you're
But
gonna
I
be
think
there.
for closing for today, I'd to thank everybody for coming on this journey with us and staying, interested and watching. And just a reminder, ask the curious questions.
Yes.
Drop a comment down there, email us, and Val will put the links to the books here as well. And, we'd love to hear from our